episode 2 at the helm, because once again I've put off the series long enough. But from here, we're going to move what I mentioned of that entire losing weight thing into now episode 2 being, let's chunk out that beginning summer. And I have clips. They're going to be spaced throughout this, so you can follow me around campus. But particularly one of the things I want to do is the first steps of figuring out my weight. And that's really finding my TDEE, so your total daily energy expenditure. Right, so when you're 370 pounds to begin with, your BMR is pretty high. And there's a bit of room for eating. Now still don't be a thick neck. But, so, doing those calculations, you can find plenty of them online. And I did those calculations. One of the first steps I did, because I wanted to see just where I was when it came to eating and how much I kind of needed to just survive. So based on my stats, my age, and my activity, right, I got a BMR of somewhere around 2,800. Counting for activities like the walking to and from the office where I live, sweltering in South Carolina, we've talked about this before, right, it kind of moved up a bit to we were pushing 4,000, right? I was saying, I was a pretty heavy person. Like I said, walking around the University of South Carolina's campus, it's not for the faint of heart, not to mention the exercise I had on there. And I had some trackers like Fitbit or my Samsung watch at the time, right? And based on some calculations, right, I always considered about a 10% error in overage or underage when it came to those calculations, right? But I would somewhere average around that time about a 6,200 caloric burn in my day. 7 if I was really active. Your boy was moving. Once again, I went from 370 to 322 from May 27th to about August 1st. So, shocker. So from there, having done that, that's how I got into my nutrition. So I mentioned my lunch. I made my 2 bologna, very, very sad 2 bologna sandwiches and a bag of chips. And I drink a lot of water. That is one thing I did, was I made sure to drink water. Hydration was a different story because I drank a lot of water. I did not consider electrolytes during that time. So I would actually cramp up quite frequently. And during my studies, I didn't truly understood, but it's because I wasn't considering the electrolytes needed when I was just guzzling down gallons and a half, 2 gallons of water with nothing else in that, while also being a caloric deficit. So make sure you're having those when you are going through that. But then we get into our exercise. I will actually cover that in the where I did it, but I kind of only recalled from football, and then I moved from there to make my exercise plan. So as I did that, and as I was in this severe caloric deficit of about probably 4,000, I was really only eating about maybe 20 to 2,800 a day. Might have gotten to 3,000 on my cheat day, I think. Well, no, I know for a fact I got more than that because Chinese buffets. But it was pretty down there. I scrapped the whole minus 500, minus 1,000, not a suggestion, but is what I did in that summer to go and lose all the weight, right? And so, but I was also large enough that I really didn't really feel the effects of such a large deficit energy-wise, really up until I would have gotten closer to 200. Sustaining that kind of deficit, not a good idea. Not healthy, and really can't do for the long haul. So slow baby steps is the route to go when it comes to doing something like that. This is Blackfield in the beginning phases of the weight loss, right? That's summer of 2019. This is where I would come out before my lifts, and I would do my agility work. I would do some speed work here and there from time to time, and I also would come here after that lift, do some cool down running. But as you can clearly see, it's a very large field. So here at the University of South Carolina, this is where I spent that summer, 5 days of the week, Monday through Friday, and maybe sometimes on the weekend. And then right next to us is the actual Black building, and this is where our gym was, and I was able to go in there and lift during that time. That's why I said 5 days a week, because that's only the days I had access. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the inside of it now. I'm sure a lot has changed since I've been here, but during that time, right, from here to in there, my workouts would take maybe 2 hours from the time of walking here, starting in my warm-up, going into lifting, and coming back outside to cool down. And that was a lot of time and dedication, but in that beginning stage is what I needed to actually get the ball rolling, to finally get away from that 400 pounds. But during that summer, right, I lived on the south side of campus. And this is where I'm heading now, right? To kind of show you, technically, the building I did stay in was right there. They've had some recent projects to rebuild South Campus. So the building I live in, or lived in at the time, no longer exists. But staying here on the south side campus, I walked to my office space during that internship summer. So imagine a walk from here, right? And then I walked this bridge all the way down, and there's more. We'll get to that part of campus when we get there. But did this 5 days a week in the summer of Columbia, South Carolina. Anyone who knows about the summers of Columbia, South Carolina would know that they are not fun weather conditions. This is also another field I would spend my time on too as well, to get some extra work in when we have time. So, barring the fact that I did not have this overpass when I was here, I also would have to walk up the stairs I'm approaching pretty soon. And so you can see why the want to lose weight was so high, because you kind of get tired of walking up flights of stairs and hills and things in 80 plus degree humid South Carolina weather before you realize it's not cut out for you. I'm about to freeze out here. It's cold. This is where it started out, right? From walking those long distances and having Blackfield as my place to kind of start my workout journey and start my exercise journey. I would make my own meals while I was here in the building that currently no longer exists. And walking to and fro on campus added in that physical activity. I think those are the key first steps, no pun intended, to where I got my habit of walking. And on Sundays, I would do that alongside my mobility trainings. I would spend my time walking around campus, whether it be hour or 2, 3 hours on end. And it's a habit I would bleed into what I do now to get in my daily walks. So, with all that being said, this journey really did start here. Although I never initially wanted to come to University of South Carolina, I think I made some great memories here. It was a great start of this. And I think that time here, I learned these habits. I learned how to make my things for myself while also learning to better my health in that time of being here as a student. One of the key areas on campus was our good old Russell House. And that's where we got a lot of our food, centrally at least. But sometimes I would go there. By the time I got to my junior and senior year, I really made most of my food in my dorm's kitchen at the time when I was being at RA McBride. And so during that time then, I really would only use my swipes and meal plan dollars for Starbucks, the loaves to be hitting, and like the refreshers. And sometimes I would go to Chick-fil-A. I would get like the grilled nuggets, or I'd get a spicy chicken sandwich from time to time. So those are really the only two places I spent my meal plan dollars. In my freshman year, before the weight loss journey, there was some good eating. I can tell you right now, we had those big old taco bowls and a turkey burger. But those days are past, right? And so most of the time, that's where I kind of learned to build those habits out there at the Russell House. And like I said, being here on campus, it made me realize that's how I learned I'm a social eater. Left to my own devices, I don't eat that much. Whatever came, whatever I picked up. But in those early phases, learning how to prepare my own food and not worry about the ingredients around me was definitely a step that was different here, on top of the walking back and forth everywhere. Really being big and just walking everywhere, large and heavy, you kind of get over it. You really do. You're just like, wow, being fat's not fun. Now that we've kind of followed along and I explained eating on campus and what my meals looked like my freshman year leading into the sophomore summer that would kind of bridge this change. Wait, no, I can't keep up with myself. Summer of junior year. Start of junior. Time really is all over the place. The summer, leading into the summer of my junior year, right? And I had to make my own food and go from that. Like, these are skills and lifestyle changes I've learned over time. These skills began during that summer when I had to learn while being away and working, right? And realizing, once again, no one wants to be fat. Let's be honest. It's not fun. So like you learn the skills, and I wanted to make that lifestyle change, and that's the ultimate key thing that was central to all this, is that this is a lifestyle change from being physically fit to making your own food. You want to ingrain it to where it's not so much as a burden as it just becomes a habit. It becomes natural for you. And so that's where it all started from there. Now this would lead into going on to continuing that when I kind of stagnated around 270, 260. And I mentioned the ups and downs before, but during that time I kind of stayed there really up until graduating. And then afterwards, when I did reach about 239, I had one DEXA scan that showed I was around like 10%, I don't know what she went, around 10% body fat percentage. I didn't believe it. That's why we're getting another one, because that's kind of absurd. We'll see. And I've done BIA, and even the BIA scans have been relatively close to that number. Not like 8%, but they've been like around the 13 to 16% body fat, and hydration is an important factor for all of those too to consider. But episode 2 is pretty short. It's just more so what I did during this time. Episode 3. Ooh. I was talking about what I did and the happiness and we lost weight. Episode 3, before we continue through the phases of this, that's more of the you don't lose 55 pounds without learning a lot. In massive weight loss, or small weight loss, honestly, bodybuilding, all those aspects, they come with very, very dark things that many people try to shy away from. Maybe not so much more now, but during my early times looking at YouTube, you didn't really see too much of that. From the eating habits, from the seclusion portions, from the revelations of yourself, from the revelations of those around you, particularly, you see a lot, and it becomes a very hard fight to say. Did I say fart? I definitely meant to fight. It becomes a hard fight, particularly, right? And there's a lot you have to kind of gauge, understand. So when it comes to that episode, it will be darker in nature, and it's going to cover the beginning portions of the weight loss and everything in between, and then the last portions leading to the surgery. You have your ups and downs, and there's a lot to consider, but you also have to be grounded when doing so.